Hello and welcome again to Conscious TV. I'm Iain McNay and my guest today is Russel Williams. Hi Russel. And Russel is a very extraordinary man. He was born in 1921, which makes him 94 years old. So he's really lived a life in many, many ways. We're actually in Manchester at the headquarters of the Manchester Buddhist Society, of which Russel is the president, although he does say also he's not a Buddhist. So we'll try and find out how that fits together later. I'm going to have to condense a lot of this because so many things have happened to Russel over the years and he has so much insight. It's going to be quite hard to get it in one program, but we'll do our best and we'll see where it goes. And he has a book which he did with Steve Taylor, which is called Not I, Not Other Than I, which is partly biographical and partly about how he sees reality. And there's some questions and answers in there as well with some students, which is very interesting. So Russel, let's start at the beginning when you were born.
Yeah.
Because you can remember being born.
Yes.
So what do you remember about being born?
I remember it was not a very pleasant time at all. I know they make a lot about being born and the happiness. It's not for the one who's coming in. Initially, nothing particular except being very, very comfortable. And then a great deal of pressure as though one being squeezed to death. You might relate it, as you might say, to putting a football through a 6-inch pipe. The squeezing. And then of course the pressure releasing and opening out. And suddenly is one aware of a sensation which is totally different to where it was before. One can only say now it was cold.
It was cold?
Yes.
Yes.
But one didn't know that then. It was just an experience which was not identified. One could see. I remember it was in a long room and there were some long windows along high up. There was lighting. I didn't know at the time it was gas lighting, a sort of warm yellow light. And the sounds, they were like blows. And then one took in air, that cold air, and they're cold inside. It was like freezing from the warmth. It had been living like a fish on warmth inside, and now it's cold air, which has no substance. So it really is brutal. It's only later I've been able to put names to these things, but these were truly experienced, just being conscious of these things. But strangely, one didn't see or experience it as suffering or discomfort. There was no such thought. Merely a sense of different. That's a strange thing, isn't it?
It is, and from the conversation we were having before we started recording,
Yes.
that is very much the way you experience now.
Right,
Things are just the way they are.
I've gone back to that aspect.
Yes, yes.
Seeing but now you see I can identify things as well, but I don't need to, because the experience is sufficient in itself.
Yes.
So yes, that's what the way I remember. So birth is not a pleasant thing. And I wonder sometimes whether the fear of death is not the death itself, but the innate knowing of a rebirth that follows.
So what happens is we're born,
yes,
and as you say, to start with, we have sensational experience,
that's right,
but we
the
don't.
Sensation,
we don't have
the consciousness is there without thought.
Right.
Therefore, thought is not consciousness.
So there's no names, there's no judgment, good, bad.
Just
it's just
experience.
The way things
Just
are.
experience.
And then over time, 2-3 years or whatever, then we start
then
to...
we begin to, one begins to appreciate things as an embryo entity. Because one didn't know this. One's taught to be a somebody, if you follow me. It's all taught. It's not there otherwise. And consequently, one's taught to identify things, a table, a chair, a person, or whatever. Your food, drink, whatever, you get taught these things, otherwise you'd never know. As an instance, for instance, unless somebody explains to you, how would you know what a lemon was?
What a lemon was?
Yeah. You've never seen one, you've never heard of one.
Yes.
And people talk about this, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
But when offers you one, and you experience it, oh, now I know lemon. See what I'm getting at? You experience it and then you can identify it. Without that experience, there's nothing to identify.
Yeah, and I'm just remembering I've read in the past about tribes, very basic tribes in South America that are relatively undiscovered. They see things that we don't see.
That's right.
And the other way around as well.
That's
We're
right,
seeing
of course,
things that they
that's
don't
right.
see.
But
And
it's
very much what we're taught.
it's almost, as you might say, in this sense, to recognise and appreciate special experiences is almost a language in itself, without word identification.
So it's all conditioning, really.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Because when you were young, you write in the book that when you were young, you were very poor, but you were also very happy.
Oh, yeah.
Because you didn't know that poor was bad.
No, of course we didn't. That's what I say. People don't understand what poor is today.
Yes.
Because when you're born into it, that's all there is.
Yeah.
And you're quite content to be that way.
Yes.
When you get more, then of course problems begin, because then you want more.
And you had a happy family and your parents were happy together.
They were very nice, very,
Yes.
very. I couldn't have had better parents. Unfortunately, they were both never very healthy.
Yes.
It's one of the tragedies of life, but there it is. Had it not been that way, I wouldn't be where I am today. I'm grateful to them, extremely grateful. I only wish I could tell them. Well, I do it away.
And you were never afraid?
No.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. I've never been afraid of anything other than myself.
What do you mean by that, other than yourself?
Well, later, as I became a little older, I realised it was, while we were living in Palestine, my mother was in a sanatorium in Lebanon. My father went up to visit her, and I was preparing a meal for myself and my brother and sister. And it dawned on me that there's something about this suffering that I ought to know about. I knew the obvious there. I mean, my father, he was gassed in the war, his lungs were gone. My mother had consumption. Okay, these are early. But there was something beyond that, I knew. And I wanted to find what it was. I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to approach it in any way. I was frustrated. And that made me very angry.
And how old were you at this time?
9.
9
years old.
So you knew that things weren't right.
That's right.
But you didn't
and I couldn't understand why or what for, how
Yeah.
to go about it in any way at all.
Yes.
And I had to shelve it, but it was frustrating.
Yes.
So from there on, things became very, very difficult.
Because you were close to death.
On many
times.
Many occasions.
You drowned, almost drowned several times.
Yes, and I was never afraid.
Yes.
It was always accepting that, okay, it's the way it's going.
The story I like the most about you kind of getting in a dangerous situation was with the elephant. Do you want? I know that was when you were
No,
5 years
no,
old.
an elephant was not a problem to me.
Tell it. It's a great little story that because it just.
No, in actual fact, I don't recall Jones' elephant I had a problem with in that sense.
Yeah, but the elephant came off the docks at Tilbury, and they were going to London Zoo.
Oh, I forgot that. Yes, we were. This was around the time just before we went to Palestine. My grandfather, on my mother's side, lived about halfway between Tilbury and London, at a little turning on the main road that led to a little village called Aveley. Opposite across the other road was a huge sand and gravel pit in which he worked. On this side he bought some old army huts, Nissen huts, from the previous war, turned them into tea rooms. Now it was on a big, I suppose it was on a plot of land about half an acre. Now, this was the time when the King of Siam had sent a white elephant to our king. And of course, to keep it company, sent a grey one with it. And they were walking from Tilbury to London.
They
stopped
it's extraordinary that elephants would walk along the road to go
that's
to the...
right.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't transport them in those days, they had to walk.
Yeah.
We all had to, virtually, unless we had horses. And they spent the night on this plot. So they drove some stakes in the ground and chained them to the stakes, you see, overnight. And had my dog, the dog which I assume was mine at those days, because we were so constant companions.
It's Trigger.
Yes. Tinker.
Yeah.
He got a bit upset and got barking and got too close to the elephant, and one picked him up and threw him. He yiped, and I was just turned 5 at the time, I think. And I lashed up and started pulling him in the fist.
So you were hitting the elephant?
Yes, pulling him in the fist in his leg.
The elephant picks you up, throws you down, and you're not afraid.
No fear, just anger.
You're annoyed with the elephant.
My dog.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
Looking back.
So that we don't have time to go to all the details
No,
about
of course.
all these things that happened, but that's a lovely. I feel that's a lovely story. And then, sadly, when you were 11 years old, both your parents died within.
Dad died. I was about just turned 10.
Yeah.
And things were in very bad straits. And my brother, being older than me, he turned 12 and he joined the Navy at 12 years old as boy entrant. So he got a good education out of that. In fact, he stayed with the until for 35 years. And I insisted I had to go to work to help Mother. So I had to go and leave school. And the local council gave special dispensation to allow me to work at that age. So by the time I'd been working about 2 months, Mother died. She was so ill. Strangely, I was working at an engineering firm at the base of the hill, and she was at the top of the hill, the same road in Russel, and died there. The way things work.
Yeah.
I knew precise time when both of them died. I was well aware of it. I felt it, and I was happy.
So
I knew they were free.
So you felt
already
inside.
sensed things in here, not up there.
So you knew that they were dying, even though you hadn't been told that they were dying.
Oh yes.
Okay. Yeah. So when you say you sensed it in here, can you describe that a little bit more?
No, it's very difficult to appreciate if somebody who doesn't know. You can't experience something that somebody else has experienced to that degree unless you already have some idea what it's about. But I will say this about it. It made what a great relief to be happy to know that they were out of it.
They were out of their suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew that. I knew they weren't dead. The bodies were dying. but they weren't dead.
Yes.
I knew they were still alive.
Yeah, they were alive somewhere.
How I knew, I don't know.
Yeah.
How I knew, I don't know. Just one of those things.
And then you had to go to work.
I was already working.
But you had to support yourself.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
that was even more difficult.
Yeah.
Because I started only 10 shillings a week, which was not a lot even in those days.
Mm.
It cost at least £1 to live on. Then I had to do all sorts of things from morning till night. That's how things worked out. I eventually finished up on a trawler because that fed me and watered me and filled me until I had an accident. Of course, that put that pain.
So you were trawler and you were fishing up to sea, and that was hard, wasn't it?
Very.
Yeah.
Very hard indeed.
I don't think we appreciate these days a lot of the time how hard it was for people in those days in the 1920s and 30s.
You do not know what poverty is.
Yes, yes.
You didn't know where your next meal was coming from, or even if you'd had one. To find enough money for a pair of boots or shoes, well, usually you handed down for somebody else. You couldn't afford it. Honest to God.
But what can you remember? What was the? Were you aware of a life force or a drive that kept you going? That
Look, there's something that keeps you going under all circumstances. Survival instinct, I would call it. There never any thought of giving up. You carried on in some fashion or another to get to your well through somehow, somewhere. You didn't know where you were going, but you're trying to get away from where you were.
Yes. The human spirit, we could
That's
maybe
right,
call it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You do many things you don't want to do in order to survive. What else? Survival is the thing.
So then the war broke out and you started...
That was my salvation to a degree.
You talk in the book about you joined the army, it kept you out of trouble.
Yes, it did.
And it gave you a stability,
It did.
food and shelter, and taught you self-discipline with your emotions.
That's right, yeah. Very much so. You would never believe the state that the country was in at that time. I joined the army as a volunteer January 1940. The VEF was still in France at the time. I joined in Hammersmith. I enrolled. They gave me 24 hours to wind up my affairs and come back and join me properly. So it's okay.
And then you also talk in the book about how you were at Dunkirk.
Yes.
For people
that was by accident.
Yeah, for people that don't know, Dunkirk was when the British Army was surrounded by the Germans, and there was an operation
and that
to evacuate.
It should never have happened. Everyone that came back that I met said the same thing. That was to use their language, the bees let us down. In other words, they all run out of supplies and ammunition. Otherwise they could have stopped them.
Yes.
They hadn't got him.
Anyway, you were in a small boat and you went out.
In a small boat, we went out 3 days and nights, ferrying them from the beaches out to the destroyers or frigates. We didn't take them to land at all. We put them on the bigger boats.
Because you said
you were constantly in and out, in and out, in and out.
They were lining up, and you picked up in small boats.
We each went at our own speed as best we could. Because these boats were only river boats, remember, and they were on the sea. Fortunately, the sea was not too bad, and we loaded up to a point we only had this much leeway. Anyway, sort of a place where you get swamped. Unfortunately, the first trip was okay. It was the second one. That's where the problem starts, the Fokker-Wolfs and the Messerschmitts. And then came the circus that I bombed. and the odd shell coming up for the fire.
So there's planes that are coming down
The
and they're machine gunning,
the
trying to machine gun
Stukas,
you.
dive bombs, they had sort of sirens on them. As they swooped to come, this huge noise they made, and you would see them coming at you. About 500 foot, they dropped their bomb on you.
Mm.
Thank you. We'll leave it there if you don't mind.
But
Now,
you,
even to
but you
this,
had no
even
fear.
to this day,
Yeah.
it's
It's emotion,
me.
and brings up emotions. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then shortly after it was the Blitz.
Yes, I became company manager in that period of time, keeping contact because you had various platoons on different parts, as you might say. For example, on the docks, Halston, Marshall Yards, we had some on Barnes Bridge, we had some in the Central Telegraph Office, up on the roof, and machine guns up there. To keep as you say, with enemy action during the Blitz, they kept losing their bases and had to find them new quarters to stay in and so forth. Make sure they got their food and everything they needed. So it was constantly on the move. I went for many hours, many days, quite a few days without sleeping those times because it's so urgent. I had a bicycle at first, but they chucked it away. It wasn't any good. There's so much rubble in the streets you couldn't ride it.
Yeah. Must have been so disorientating.
It was so you had to create order out of chaos, as you might say. Well, it worked. We managed that.
Yes. But you also got electrocuted.
Yes, well, that came about, you see. There have been quite a few years now since the thing has been built, 4 or 5 years now, about 4 years coming up. And it decided that I go and inspect the state of the transformers where the mains come in to the airfield. Well, obvious, I mean, weathering on it, because it's only a brick-built thing with an iron gate, no two roofs, it was exposed to the weather. They thought they probably need to paint or something job, you know. So I went in to have a look around, and I brushed against the shed and got caught. We didn't know the insulation had been broken down, so I copped it, and it threw the body across the whole 3 cables. Around 33,000 volts. Shot out.
Yeah.
The last thing I remember as it went out, oh God, I've had it. Quite sad.
Yeah.
No thought about it. And then, of course, way out in space. I became aware of a great light. And then there was something funny about this. Then I realised it was me.
So you were out there, and you were this great light.
It may have been 1,000,000 miles, I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
Just space, enormous. And this light, and I realised I was the light. And then something dawned in the consciousness. It didn't say words, but it implied that there's something that needs to be done. I had to go back.
Mm.
And for the physician looked down and you see there's this little body lying, little doll body lying across this table. The alternative was to go through and get born again.
So you were.
I had a choice.
You knew you had a choice to either
and
get born
the
again
idea
or
was
go back in your body.
it seemed there was an urgency of some sort. I didn't know why or what. Well, in that case, we'd get the body going because it's already mature.
Mm.
It'll take time to get to born and go through the process. So we went and got it back. The hardest thing I ever did in my life was to take a breath into that body in order that it could escape from the paralysed situation in which it was. One breath and it was out, off. The front Yeah, and my clothing was mouldering, and the sole of my boot was mouldering, and my body was untouched. How do you count from that?
It's remarkable, isn't it?
I can't believe it. Even to this day, it's unbelievable.
33,000 volts.
But the same thing would apply with other things. I don't know how or why. I wasn't allowed to die.
Mm. But you had to get a new pair of boots, did you?
I did.
Yeah. So you realised you needed to rethink your life. You needed a new starting point.
Well,
and you had a job, but you felt that you didn't want to go on like this.
No, you see, whilst we'd been working, it had planned with another chappie, a colleague, to start up a small electrical repair business. Because through the war, there's so many electrical plants been neglected, needed dealing with. So we're okay to start now. But when it came to this at the VE day, when it finished, I resigned and said, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. And I said, I can't do this, I just cannot, it won't do me. And I looked at many different avenues I might have taken. Each one's, this is not going to get you where you want to go. I didn't know. I took to the road. I was a mess. Mentally, emotionally, physically, I was a mess. I wanted to get away from myself and everything else. In order to, perhaps then I could clarify things. I don't know how long I walked.
And you just started walking with no idea where you were going?
With a couple of shillings in my pocket.
Yes.
Nothing else. And the clothes I wore. That's all. Just walked. I just wanted to get away from myself and everything else.
You slept
it's very hazy, very hazy.
Yeah.
I remember one time, within that, I was naked sitting on the bank of a stream, watching my clothes dry in the sunshine on the bank the other side. I'd washed them. I remember painting a fence for somebody, for a sandwich and a cup of tea. I just walked and walked. I remember once I was shoveling snow outside New Street Station in Birmingham, just for a day's pay, with many few others down the house. I remember heaving potatoes, digging them up out of the ground. One day I remember it was icy cold. I dug a Swede out of a farmer's field with my fingers. It lasted me for 3 days.
And so for several weeks you just walked, did odd jobs?
There was nothing. And then one beautifully sunny day, I was walking across the moors in Devon, and I came across a showman sitting in his broken down van, sitting on the steps, having a pot of tea, and he offered me one as I approached. He gave me a job, if I could get to Newquay by morning, about 70 miles away. They gave me a meal, a note to take with me, because he started a tiny little bit of a circus. He borrowed 4 animals to go, and his children were acrobats and so on. I said, okay, pound a week, a food, that'll do me. Somehow I made it the 70 miles to meet them as they left that place, St. Ives. And I was with them to the end of the season. We finished up in Helsby, Yorkshire. And he and his family went back to winter quarters in Brown Hills, left me up there with the horses, keep there for a few days, and he come back with a horse box to pick them up. And when he did, he dropped me off in Chesterfield, said, there's a friend of mine, he wants a good man, he's on the theatre there, there's a job for you. So I went. So now, I've got a dozen animals to look after.
And then you formed a special relationship with
Well,
the horses.
during this time, you see, whilst we built the show, I looked after these animals. And I built up a very... You can't not love these animals when you live with them, day and night.
Yeah.
You go tending, you live with them, you sleep with them, you eat with them. You're 24 hours a day. You can't not care. And I thought, these animals really do a good job, and they were well looked after, absolutely, because they were tools of a trade. Like a carpenter looks after his tools, a showman looks after his animals. There's no cruelty whatsoever. I thought, if I could understand the true nature of these, I could perhaps do even a bit better. And I set myself that task, not allowing myself to form any opinions whatsoever. That took a bit of doing, but after 3 months I stopped thinking.
So where did that idea come from of yours, do you think?
I don't know, it came from deep within me, sort of instinctively.
Yes.
And this is the bit that gets... How did I know that I mustn't allow myself to think about these things or form an opinion? Because it would be on a concept of some sort. Would that be right? So anyway...
For 3 months you just
3 months
focused
I just focused on them, just observing, them, feeding, grooming, doing whatever had to be done, without thinking about it. It's just so natural. Mm. Then another 3 years went by, and one morning, I remember it was in September, at Doncaster, the last tenting of the season. And I was on a clamp bed, I woke up and I looked across, and when I thought, I could the steam coming out of his nostril. The next thing I know, I was looking through the eyes of the horse, and feeling it and knowing it, as though consciousness is transferred. Wonderful. And then I reverted back to this. You got this, I better go and have a look at the lions, see what they're doing. I knew a lion. They had a couple of Alsatians, one of them come, well, I knew that. I looked across and saw a tree, and I knew that too. And I looked into this. Oh dear. They're just the same. No different. Just conscious life itself, nothing else.
So it's as if, when you say you look through the eyes of the horse...
And at that point, all the emotional aspects disappeared.
Mm.
Weren't there anymore. I was at total, utter peace. Isn't that weird? It's 65 years ago now, I think.
You were 29 then, I think,
I was 29 years old then.
Yeah. But I'm interested just to go in this a little bit more detail. So you look through the eyes of the horse.
Yes. And I saw my own body lying in its bed.
You saw your own body?
Yes. That's how I know it was in there looking through the horse. Yes.
And then you did the same with the dog?
I felt it, right. Yeah. I felt the same with a dog and a lion and a tree.
So you were in the tree?
They're all the same
looking,
thing.
Yeah.
They've all got the same source. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is extraordinary, yes.
It's beyond thought, it's beyond understanding.
Yeah.
But I know it to be true.
And how did that impact your life?
Totally, utterly different. Prior to that, as you know, I've spoken, I've been angry with myself. I knew now what I had to know. I knew what I had to know now. The only thing I knew, I realised that this was part and parcel of what it was when it got electrocuted. What it came back for. But I didn't know what it was supposed to use it for. I hadn't a clue.
So when you were electrocuted, you felt very peaceful and serene when you were outside
I mean, it was partly at peace out there, but there's something to be done. No, there was nothing to be done.
Okay. So there was like another stage
The wonder
happened.
was, now, what's it all about? So I thought, well, it will show me when it's necessary. Okay, but I'll trust that. So another 7 years go by before I could find anybody who would understand what I was talking about. Wherever I travelled around, obviously I approached the clergy and people like that. No chance.
I want to go back, Russell, to the horses.
Yes.
Because there was a maybe process is the wrong word, but there was something that happened with the horses after your opening, because you could heal the horses. You could feel when they were distressed at distance.
What happened was that as a course of moving about, we used to, where possible, let the horses loose in the field if you had that ability. And on one occasion we did. And one of the animals, unfortunately, stamped down onto a broken bottle. He was in great pain. It didn't scream, that was somewhere else that happened. Because horses don't scream. And I approached it and it trusted me. And if you try to swallow out little bits of glass in a load of blood, it's a hell of a nuisance job. And it let me do it. Very painful. And I managed to get it all out. Had to plug it up. I had to go down to the blacksmith to get a new shoe made in order to go to slide a leather in underneath to hold the dressing in. So keep on changing it till it was healed.
So, but what was happening between you and the horses? It was like they completely trusted you.
They trusted me, even to a point. I didn't know about this until we went to Newmarket. We showed there. We arrived there and built up on a Sunday. We had a ferry showing on Monday. And of course, having horses and so on in a horsey place, what do you expect? People coming. It was really about 9:30 or 10 in the evening. Dark. I got a couple of hurricane lamps hanging on. I was sitting on a bale of straw, in actual fact. We were vending a bit of harness. And the boss came in with a crew of 3 of the trainers from the stables around. They were talking quietly amongst themselves, you know, and then I said, "Hey, what's happened here?" Look about, nothing. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" "They're all laying down." Oh, he said, "Yeah, that's right." I was known as Bill Williams in those days. He said, "Bill, go outside a minute, will you?" I did. One of the horses stood up. They come on back in there for a while. I did. The horse lay down again. They regarded me as one of them.
They regarded you as one of them.
Oh my God, you did.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I laid down, then one of them would stand up.
Yeah.
Always one would stand up, like cows. Always one stands up.
So you also realised at this time that, and I'm reading here, extract from the book, you saw that space was the most important quality in the universe. Out of the emptiness, things began to materialise.
No, that's something that you can't explain. That is beyond all understanding. But it has such a depth of meaning as to be unbelievable. I cannot explain it, but I know it. There's so much in this area I'm really so familiar with, but I can't tell you. There were no words. How do you explain emptiness to anybody? Can you describe it? Does it have any meaning?
What it does when you don't have thought.
A great deal. It does to everybody on earth when we talk, and we don't even know it. Did you ever think that punctuation is that emptiness between words that gives you understanding?
The space between the words, yeah.
I mean, you create a simple little sentence. Punctuated in one way, it means which. Punctuated in another way, it does the opposite. That little gap in the right place makes... So you see, emptiness is very important in your understanding without you knowing it.
Because we didn't really cover this very much, but since you were 29, when you had the experience...
There's a lot of years gone by, and a lot of experience come with it.
Yes.
You couldn't do it overnight.
No, but what I'm getting at is that you say in the book that from 29 years on till you're mature, 94 years,
that's right.
You only think when it's necessary.
That's right, exactly.
The rest of the time,
I'm quite happy not to.
You're quite happy not to. So what happens when you don't think?
I'm quite content.
You're content, you're aware?
Content in the sense I don't want anything, I don't not want anything. I'm happy, content to be what I am.
And beforehand, you talk about again in the book that happiness was something you were looking for.
It is, but it's happiness was the wrong word.
Okay.
Because it's one of the conditioned areas which you best without. Contentedness is the greater. Happiness is dependent upon this or that. Contented doesn't need anything.
Content is just the state
it's
which
outside,
exists.
It's outside of the conditioned area.
Do you think it's possible to find this contentedness without having the experience and the realization of being one with everything?
I'm quite well aware it is possible for people to quietly come without any great experience. If they're prepared to begin to see, initially use their brain, yes, start with a think and a minimal aspect of understanding, which then gives you a guideline, and then following it through to become more consciously aware by feeling, that you make the transfer from one to the other, and within that, you almost indefinitely you will find. You have to move away from all conditioned areas, without any form of emotion of any kind.
Yeah, but that implies that there's a process of moving away.
Oh, yeah.
Is that really the case?
Oh, yes. It can be followed quite... The main thing about this is to anybody the most serious thing in your life. The way in which you live. Doesn't matter how you live, that's your importance. It's the most important thing. Oneself is the main interest for anybody in this world.
It's true.
Agree?
Yep, absolutely.
Now, why do we do anything? Because we're not satisfied with what we are.
Well, we do certain things because we need to, like we need to eat
we think
and
we
sleep.
Need. Do we really need, or do we really want? Big difference.
Okay.
Needs are very, very few. Wants are enormous. Can you distinguish between the two?
It's a good question.
It is a good question, you see.
Yeah.
Now, this is the area we're dealing with.
Yes.
You see, when we come to Luke, and here's another thing. Have you ever lived your own life? No. On this basis, there's very few people who've ever lived their own lives so far, because, such as myself in the first place, meet somebody who's angry, making an angry point. Do you become irritated, angry? Do you take on their condition? Do you not carry it a little while and then pass it on to somebody else as well?
Yes, but on the other hand, to live
But
your
who started it? Was it you? Did you borrow theirs, or did you create it for yourself?
No, I understand what you're saying.
See where I'm getting at?
Yes.
So we're sharing these things all the time and not really living our own lives.
But
Would you say there's a particular mode in which you live, which is you? Are you the same person that lives in anger as what you are now?
But you see, my more fundamental question is, do we have a life to live?
Not as an entity, no. There is no entity.
So
As I see it, you see, there is only consciousness in reality. All else is delusion. Now, that's a different thing, you see. But that's the realization.
But isn't that the fundamental?
I don't live necessarily. Yes, there's a physical body here. It was conditioned to a great extent, and it was very unhappy with that. It's now unconditioned. It doesn't need that. It's free, and it knows damn well that when this body dies, it will be totally free.
When you had the realization, you had the experience at 29, was there any kind of process of a letting go or an integration?
It had already let go.
So it all happened at once?
It didn't have to come back. It didn't have to. It knows when this is released, it would have to go and not come back again.
So you talked about all your frustration and anger
all
going.
All gone.
But did all the other programming go at the same time?
When the realization dawned, it all disappeared. It didn't then come coming back into the body. It still contained all the angers, all the emotions. It still had those. They came later. Yes.
Okay, so there was a kind of, in my words, a process in terms of...
There was some sort of knowing that what the true reality was, though I didn't understand it at the time. Looking back, I can appreciate it for what it really was, that great depth. And I can always call that what? Great depth.
Great depth?
Yes.
Yes.
A great depth without any form of conditioning whatsoever. This is so utterly peaceful. You cannot imagine it. That has stayed with me. But until, with the horses, I made that change, or it made it for me, put it that way, because I didn't do it, then all things changed. It's remained in that outer body experiencing within the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah. An out of body experience within the body.
Yeah.
Yeah, disassociation.
So there's no longer me anymore as an entity.
Yes.
I had a great identity. It was an anger. It was motivated by all kinds of emotions. It doesn't happen anymore. All it has is a great deal of concern and love for all things. And I am that quality. I'm not a person anymore. But something out of that, where it becomes more specific and there's somebody in need of something, it will respond to that need. I don't know how it does it. It's beyond my understanding. In fact, I don't have to understand. I know it works, that's all. I accept that.
So I know that in this house here, from what Steve Taylor has told me, you talk a couple of evenings a week.
Yes,
you are here and talking.
Yes, wherever it is possible for me to do so. Sometimes I may be ill and not able to.
Okay, but what actually happens between you and the people? Some of them are here.
Ask them.
Well, the camera's not set up for that. But what is your experience of what happens?
Well, I look from here. I can't tell you precisely, but I see a lot of persons, bodies sitting around here. They all seem to be wrapped in what they're looking at. I don't know what they're looking at.
They're wrapped. What do you mean by wrapped?
Yes, in thrall. Do you know what thrall is?
Yes.
They seem to be in that condition. and they say nothing. I ask, oh no, what?
A kind of trance they're in.
They're just kind of almost as though they're in a trance. I don't know why, I don't know what they're looking at.
They're looking at you.
But I look deeper into them, and I know they're so at peace within themselves in these moments that it doesn't really matter. I know they'll pick up everything as they go up.
So, in the same way you could look inside the horse's eyes, are you doing that with people?
Oh yeah.
Are you looking inside my eyes now?
I'm not. I don't need to look in your eyes
Okay.
because I'm looking at you by feeling and not by seeing.
Feeling, okay. And that is something that happens automatically with you.
I don't make it happen.
Yeah.
This is the wonderful thing I find, because, as you know, people live at all levels. Consciousness, thought, emotion. And this will adjust to whatever level that is needed. I don't know how it does it. I could talk over here, I could talk over that, just like that, from this to that, just in a second. It just works. I don't know how it does it. You ask them, they'll perhaps tell you better than I, because they're the ones that's experiencing this, and they see it happening. I think one of the strange things is, and I think you may find confirmation of this, that I can't talk to a group, I can only talk to one at any one point in time, at their particular level, no matter how high or low it is. And yet at the same time, everybody else is going for the same thing. I don't know how it does it.
So there's a focus between you and one person.
It would appear
and then that
is spread, it just spreads out, like light spreads out, I suppose. I don't know how it happens. I'm not aware of the processes.
Yeah.
All I'm aware, it works.
Well, one of the things you talk about again in the book is that when you're with someone, that you're totally with them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you're
only
in a
them
shop buying something, and
that's right.
There's total attention, which isn't a doing attention. It's just a state which is a total attention with the other.
Shall we put it this way? I mean, in the Buddhism aspect, they talk of mindfulness. Mindful? Actually, it means an empty mind.
Yeah.
So that whatever the focus is, it fills it completely, utterly.
Yes.
So therefore, within that utter fulfillment, all the qualities that are there within that bit are here in this. And this doesn't exist, there's only that in here. Does that make sense?
It does, actually.
Strangely, it does, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It's so natural, but how often do people give their full attention to things? There's too much clutter with this and only half your attention here, a bit over then, a bit somewhere.
But you see, I think, Russell, there's two things here, and maybe I stand corrected, but there's me giving you my attention, and I can do that through mindfulness, through concentration, and there's me being in a spacious space without the me so much, or without me, and there is attention happening. They're different things.
Now, can I put it in this way?
Yeah.
You, for the moment, are concentrated here with this. Does it fill your mind?
Well, there's a mental effort, because I have to get used to your voice.
Well, whatever.
So there's a mental effort involved
but
at the moment.
then there is just this that's operating momentarily within your perception.
I'm fully concentrated on what's happening here,
So,
as much as I can.
Fine,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Whilst that full concentration is there, are you really there? Or is there only that?
Well, that's a deep question.
Yes, isn't it?
Say it again.
If your mind is full of this, how can you be full of self? Have you not given yourself away?
Well, there's still, you see, Russell, the problem is there's still preferences running. They may not be.
Then you're not fully there then.
Well, as much as I can be.
Yeah, yes. You see, when it's holding there, there was
Yes.
only that. No me.
That I understand.
There's no me. There's only
Yes.
you.
Yes. There's still
See,
preferences.
so I disappear in that because there's only that.
Yes.
I think they can go back to something that Buddha taught to an old man a long time ago. In the seeing, there was only that which is seen. In the hearing, there was only that which is heard. So on. Does that make sense? Only that which is seen. What do you see? What do you hear? What's wonder? You're seeing things, you're hearing sounds, that's all. Do they have any meaning? Except what you emotionally make of them.
Yes. If I'm cold, the body's cold or the body's too hot, that has meaning, yes. For the state of the body.
Someone's attached to the feeling.
It's information.
They made it mine. Clinging. All these aspects will come. They're there, of course they're there. Nobody says they're not. But you have to make them mine.
And maybe that's a good place to finish. They're all there. Do I have to make them mine? I'm going to show your book again, which you did with Steve Taylor, who's sitting there, who's not in the camera. Not I, not other than I.
Correct.
Which I said at the beginning is it's great because there's so many interesting stories in terms of Russel's life, as well as some transcripts of some of his sessions with students, which also are very revealing in many ways. And I'm also, as he's been so helpful, and Steve Carroll, I'm going to plug Steve's 2 books. And this is the one with the Eckhart Tolle preface. Steve's quite famous in many ways, you know. And this is Waking from Sleep, which did quite well. And a new one he's just given me, I haven't even opened, which is the Eckhart Tolle edition. Sounds very impressive. The Calm Center. I'm going to thank you for watching TV, Conscious TV. I'm going to thank Russell again for being here. And I hope we see you again soon.
Yes, I hope so too.
Absolutely.
So there's something you said to Iain in the interview which triggered a question in me.
Yeah.
And it is being completely with the other when you talk with them or when you are engaging. Now in my experience, in my daily experience, that's what I'm very good at. I'm completely disappearing into the other, into my environment,
Yes.
and I am not here.
That's
There is
right.
no awareness
That's correct.
that I am here.
You're not aware of self.
I'm not aware of self.
No,
I
that's
do
correct.
not
And that
exist.
is as it should
Yeah.
be.
But I do experience everything the other person experiences.
Yes, but where do you experience it?
That's a good
In
question.
there.
That's true. But there's also, afterwards, in certain experience completely exhausts this body.
Yes.
And you are saying you don't get exhausted.
No.
So what's the difference?
If anything, these sessions help me to gain more energy.
Yeah. So
Not be exhausted at all.
So what's the difference? What am I missing? Because I think I need, that happens to me because I am not completely present in my body.
That's, I agree with that.
I am going to the other.
You're seeing it as external. You're not seeing it within. It's a very difficult thing to appreciate. But do you feel comfortable?
If I feel
Do
comfortable?
you feel comfortable now?
Yes, yes, yes.
So do you sense the qualities in here?
I do.
In there?
In
Thank you.
here.
So you don't see him out here, you see him in there.
Yes.
Dwell on it for a moment.
Say it
Dwell
again.
on it for a moment.
Dwell on it. Okay.
Let yourself rest in it. Just rest. Don't try it. Just relax. Let it be. Don't try to grasp it. Let it go if it wants to go. Let it come, let it go. Do not hold it in any way, and you'll be free. Can you do that?
Yes, and I just, do I hold it because I am emotionally engaged with it?
Yes.
So that is the.
But this
that
is something,
the thing.
but the point about it is this. If you keep attending in this way, just resting, for over a period of time, little bits here, little bits there, little bits somewhere along, gradually the emotive out will cease. The emotions, to a degree, are very, very important by not being active. Joking that. If you regard, there's a glass of water there. You see that surface? Clear as clear can be. Now the emotion should be like that. Because everything information coming in, no matter how, reflects in that and gives you a clarity of view, inwardly. Now if that's slightly rippled, you see, it gets distortion. So you don't see it truly for what it is. That's where the problem lies. And you're trying to understand which is distorted. You can't. Only when it's still. Oh, I don't need to understand because I am it already. I am it already. I don't need to look for it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and
It's just let it be.
Yeah.
Don't try to contain it. Let it be free. That's all. Be gentle. The trouble is we've been too tough trying to contain. It's there, see that? Tension. That's where it wants to be.
So, to free my emotions, does that mean to let them be free, let them experience
Let them rise and
themselves?
fall. Let them rise. Don't make a mess of it. Let them happen.
So what happens
Then
if
gradually,
emotions bring tears into my eyes?
that's all right. Never mind. Tears
Okay.
are cleansing.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of that. Tears always help to cleanse things away. That's perfectly fine. Don't be at all concerned. The point about it is that in the process of moving along, realize when we're travelling through a desert, you don't know where you're going. All you know is where you're coming from. You follow? So it's a little worrying, little apprehensive, and we cling to the fear, and that prevents us from opening out. If you can learn to trust that the process is working and open out, then you will absorb the qualities without necessary understanding. And in the absorption, you will know. In the same way as you felt that. It happened. Nobody can tell you it didn't happen. It's your experience. That is your truth. There's no truth up here. It's talking about things. It's like this, you see. Think up a table, then try and put nothing there. No truth. But it's pointing to something like that. So this is about, but this is the reality and the experience. The experiencing is the truth. And if you can only interpret that correctly through these emotions being still, then you have it free.
And Russel, how important is it to name the feelings I have, or to differentiate the feelings I have? Or is it just important to just let it be and not even give it a name?
If you can sense this thing as the experience as being, not I am experiencing.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you
sure.
do know that, don't you?
Yeah.
It is being.
Mm.
I is like putting a hat on.
Yeah.
Take the hat off, no I.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So here you have the experience, I. But the experience didn't have an I. Didn't have a self.
How simple.
Just happened. Just an experience. There is a happening.
Yeah.
Is it mine? Is it? No, it's not. It's just a happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I am part of the happening.
Yeah.
It's a strange one, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
It's more to instinctively feel and know that way, rather than to think and understand or identify. Once you identify it, you've lost it. When you put a flag on it, you've become something different.
Mm-hmm.
With no it, become a nobody. And you can be happy.
I feel that now. It actually brings at the same time tears into my eyes because
of the freedom.
Of the freedom.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And the simplicity.
So the tears are helping to wash away the debris, you see. Give you clarity.
Thank you, Russell.
Very, very welcome, my dear. Only too pleased to help where I can. That's what I'm here for. No other reason.